Hi, everybody. Week 9, search and seizure, probably my favorite topic of the course. It This section, should be important to you if you're thinking about going into law enforcement, and if you're thinking about law school. Kind of give you at least a forward on criminal procedure, one of the bar courses, and it'll should help you a little bit for your for school. So what we've got going on this or last week was we talked about patrol ops, and so much controversy about patrol ops now and how things are run, and should we be more of this community policing model where we're trying to become friends with the public and gain their respect for things that oftentimes aren't police related. And it runs into some problems when you the talk about the idea of accomplishing that, but yet you still have to go out and arrest the children of people in the community, parents of people in the community, and oftentimes they're fairly well respected, people, and it's not all the time or often that blame for this falls on the person that's being arrested. Often falls on the cops. They're not doing their job, they're being too picky, they're too concerned about enforcement, um, and, uh, and it runs to a different discussion. So, that being said, that was one group, talked about police productivity. Um, Important issue when you try to balance what was good and necessary, what were objective measures of performance in the professional model, arrests, citations, field contacts, those kind of things, enforcement related, and then what officers are actually doing in the community area. And that's a really, now I hope it came across in some of the comments I made during the week, but that's a ridiculously hard thing to figure out as to what do you want? What are the measures of performance? You can say, well, have the you know, what's how do people feel about them? How do you quantify that? And sometimes maybe a person's quiet, maybe a person isn't outgoing, maybe a person is outgoing, but they're not really very nice. They just conceal their real selves to the point where others don't know what they're really about. Um, it's extremely difficult to quantify. The other group, the other class, talked about. I'm getting my thoughts here. And I'm working through the through the uh, papers, and I'm totally I'm totally lost here. So just a quick second. The community is going to be longer in a quick second because it's not going to turn over as easily as it's supposed to. So we've got order maintenance. Let's see here. The war on cops. My goodness, that's pretty funny that I would lose my train of thought on that. War on cops. The war on cops. Heather McDonald's article. Here's what I wanted you to get from it. And this is a pretty controversial concept here. And from the papers I've read so far, there are a lot of different perspectives. Here's what I wanted you to get out of that, is I wanted you to look at both documents, the Newsweek article criticizing McDonald, and McDonald's speaking engagement at Pomona, at Claremont McKenna College. And then compare the strength, not whether or not you agree, but I wanted you to talk about the strengths of the arguments. Was McDonald's well supported? Did she provide facts that could be checked? Were there statistics? Were there, or was it purely her opinion, just stated that this is my opinion and there we go? Same thing with the Newsweek article. The better papers have thrown in a couple of other articles on that. Did a good evaluation of both McDonald and Newsweek, and then came up with two more articles that balance those, that gave not a different perspective, but at least the same perspective, but did so in a fashion that actually, continued to use facts. So that's what I was really looking for in the War on Cops, because I want you to be able to think about this. I want you to be able to look at, when you hear things from either side of the discussion, you can really look at the arguments, because we've really lost that. And I try not to give you assignments where it asks for your opinion, because people then will just say, well, I believe, I think, this or that. I want you to build an argument, to use statistics, use peer-reviewed articles to come up with ideas. So that was the idea behind the War on Cops paper. I gave you a chance to have something to say at the end, but I hope you built an argument and you just didn't say, oh, I believe. So with that stuff being done, let's talk about search and seizure. We're quite a ways into this little tape, and I'm sorry about that. Last week I tried to add sound, and I think it failed miserably. I had downloaded I opened up the PowerPoint. I've got an old version of PowerPoint, so I think that's one that's giving me trouble. I talked to tech support, and they suggested a couple of things. They suggested you use Chrome or another browser other than Safari or the Microsoft browser. Apparently that makes the stuff at the system a little bit wonky at Long Beach. So this doesn't have any sound to it, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You may need to do a little research. The disclaimer on it is, I don't think that Grant or Terry, our authors, really know much about search and seizure. I don't think they sent it out to lawyers, to people that understand search and seizure very well. So there's some things in there that are out of sorts. For the exam coming up next week, search and seizure questions will be based on the law that I present to you. And here's how the law breaks down. Pretty simple. When you look at search and seizure, you've got the search and seizure aspect of it. When can the police talk to somebody? When can they search somebody? When can they search a building? When can they search a vehicle? And what are the special searches? Now, each one of those is in the PowerPoint, and it gives you some basic rules. There's standards are talked about. When we talk about search and seizure, the police can arrest somebody when they have probable cause. They can do a limited pat-down for weapons when they have reasonable suspicion a person is involved in criminal conduct and they may be armed or dangerous. So, reasonable suspicion, probable cause. The courts get it mixed up. The courts use these terms interchangeably, and they're not. Probable cause. To get a search warrant, you need probable cause. To make an arrest, you need probable cause. And to search a vehicle without a warrant, you need probable cause. When you look through those, you'll see there is no such thing as probable cause to search a person There's no probable cause search. You can only search them under limited circumstances. And sometimes the police forget that. I mean, I've even watched live PD and cops and said, well, we have probable cause to search you. Well, unfortunately, probable cause will get you a warrant, but it won't get you a search of a person. It'll only get you the warrant to search the person. So that's that. Keep in the back of your mind, especially when you get your next step, which is going to be CRJU 350, there's only 3 ways the police can search: warrant, consent, exigency. After that, no, there's a whole bunch of exceptions depending upon the overriding factors, such as is it a vehicle? Is it a building? Is it a special search? Special search, probation, parole, inherently dangerous businesses, and then highly regulated businesses, bars, mechanics, pharmacies, things of that nature. Okay, so that's the basic about search and seizure. The next thing that comes up is admissions confessions. Admissions confessions, really easy. And that goes to the Miranda issue. With Miranda, the police can only question a person who's in custody if they have counsel present or if they waive the right to counsel. But it's got to be in custody. So say the police stop somebody driving down the street and they see contraband on the front seat. They get them out of the car so the contraband isn't messed with or weapons cannot be obtained. And they ask the person, hey, what's that contraband doing on your seat? And of course, the person answers, well, that's not my seat. Much like it's not my pants. So those questions, even though they have probable cause to arrest him because they see it right next to him, the contraband, he's not in custody. Put handcuffs on him, you're getting kind of close. So admissions, confessions, custody, interrogation. That means the very first thing the police have to say once they arrest somebody is not Miranda, but watch your head as they put him in the car. Only when they're going to interrogate or interview, depending upon what words you like to use and what kind of an emotional response you're attempting to get from the person that's reading your document. Interrogation, conjures up visions of really bad things happening. Interviews, sit down, we're going to talk about this. Different kind of things. So think about your language when you use those 2 terms. Now we have identifications. I kind of tossed around giving us things to talk about in our written assignments this week on interrogations. On identifications, because right now they're under a lot of stress from the Innocence Project is finding poor identifications in cases, and they're able to obtain exonerations through tested DNA, things of that nature. So, the Innocence Project is one issue. You're going to see a lot of that, I'm sure, in CRJU 350. Your professor will give you something on that because it's a really important topic. For our purposes here, I want you to understand the different types of identifications, the infield show-up, the photo lineup, the 2 most prevalent, and then the live lineup. Know those and what the mechanics are for those, since this is a policing course. Understand that infield show-ups, the most inherently incorrect, just because of the nature of them. So then you have the 6th Amendment right to counsel area. And that is a long line of cases, starting with Escobedo and probably before Escobedo, actually, They just didn't change the law. Escobedo is probably the first case. Then you have that consul interrogation Miranda issue. And you'll have a series of cases. The Messiah Doctrine, when is counsel available? California, I think I mentioned the PowerPoint, California's law is different. Remember, state law can be more restrictive of the government than federal law, but it cannot be less restrictive. So let's say a state had a law that said the police could stop and detain anyone that an officer had a hunch was involved in criminal conduct. Well, that violates Terry versus Ohio, the U.S. Supreme Court case. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, so it would override what the state had to say. Okay, that's what we got going on this week. We've got an exam coming up next week, so start studying, start preparing for it. Be very similar to the one you had in week 5. Other than that, I think I'll see y'all in class.